Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are about to decode what is arguably one of the most misunderstood and honestly most fascinating ancient texts in human history. We're talking about the four Vedas. Now, if you're sitting there thinking these are just, dusty old books of strict religious rules, well, prepare to have your mind absolutely blown.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What if I told you that the world's oldest scriptures were actually an exhaustive encyclopedia? Like we're talking medicine, music, statecraft, psychology, and literally the very fabric of the cosmos? Because that's exactly what the Vedas are. We really need to shatter this preconception that they're just standard religious rule books. They're so much more than that.
Here's our structural journey for today's explainer. We'll start by looking beyond mere religion. Then we'll zoom in on each of the four distinct pillars: the Rig Veda, the verses of praise; the Yajur Veda, all about rituals and action; the Sama Veda, the musical soul; and the Atharva Veda, focusing on magic and medicine. Finally, we'll see how it all functions as one unified ancient system, snapping them all together like a giant puzzle.
First up, beyond mere religion, let's set the cosmic stage here and zoom out to really grasp the Vedic worldview.
So, the word Vedas comes from the Sanskrit root vid, which simply means to know. But what exactly are they knowing? Well, tradition holds that these texts are aparushya, which is a truly fascinating concept. It basically means not of human agency. So these aren't considered books authored by people. Instead, they're believed to be eternal, self-existent truths. They were literally heard by ancient seers, called rishis, while they were in states of deep meditation. They aren't just handing out moral advice. They are mapping out literally everything in reality to form this completely comprehensive system for understanding the universe.
Moving on to our first pillar, the Rig Veda, the verses of praise. You can think of this as the foundational script of this incredible ancient cosmic theater.
Now, the Rig Veda is ancient, incredibly ancient. It's the oldest Indo-European text known to scholarship, dating all the way back to roughly 1500 to 1200 BCE. And it's massive. We're talking 1,028 hymns organized into 10 mandalas, or circles. These hymns praise over 300 deities. But actually, scratch that. They aren't really gods in the way we usually think of them. They're more like these grand personifications of natural and cosmic forces. You've got Agni, the fire, and Indra, the thunder. And here is exactly where the theater begins. These hymns are chanted by the Hotra, the invoker priest. The Hotra's entire job is to call upon these deities using this raw, incredibly powerful poetic material.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound level of philosophical speculation happening thousands of years ago. Just listen to this quote from the Nasadiya Sukta, the hymn of creation, found in the Rig Veda. "He who is the overseer in the highest heaven, only he knows, or perhaps he does not know." Wow! It ends with this staggering, almost agnostic humility. These ancient seers were asking the absolute biggest questions about existence, being and non-being, and they were doing it with an incredibly open mind. Let's transition to our second pillar, the Yajur Veda, focusing on rituals and action. This is where the beautiful poetry of the Rig Veda actually becomes actionable. So if the Rig Veda is the script, the Yajur Veda is basically the stage manager's prompt book. The word yajus literally translates to sacrificial formula. What this Veda does is transform those sweeping poetic hymns we just talked about into a functional working liturgy. It lays out the exact prose mantras to be spoken while a specific physical action is performed. And the person performing it, that would be the Advaryu priest. You can think of the Advaryu as the hands-on stage manager. They are the ones out there making the sacrifice happen physically, building the fire altar, pouring the ghee, really doing all the actual heavy lifting. Over time, likely because these priestly schools were geographically separated, the Yajur Veda actually split into two distinct traditions. First, you have the Krishna or Black Yajur Veda. Here, the mantras and the theological explanations of how to perform the ritual are all intermingled. It's called black or dark because, well, it's considered a bit confused or cluttered. Then, on the flip side, you have the Shukla or white Yajur Veda. This one is considered bright and clear because the actual formulas stand completely separate from the explanatory commentary. It's just a really fascinating practical schism that happened in the ancient world. But it wasn't all just procedural mechanics. Alongside these incredibly complex rituals, like the famous royal horse sacrifice, the Yajur Veda also gave us some of the most elevating philosophical concepts in human history. I'm talking about the texts known as the Upanishads. That profound realization, aham brahmasmi, which translates to I am Brahman, meaning the individual self is identical to the ultimate universal reality, that actually comes directly from a text attached to the white Yajur Veda.
No way, right? It's pretty amazing. Next up, our third pillar, the Samaveda, the musical soul. This is exactly where action is elevated by art. I want you to think about the number 75 for a second. Out of the 1,875 verses in the Samaveda, only about 75 are actually original. I know, that's a wildly surprising fact. The rest are literally just lifted directly from the Rig Veda, specifically the hymns dedicated to the sacred Soma plant. So you're probably wondering, why make a whole new Veda at all? Well, because it's not about new words, it's all about a complete musical reimagining. You see, the Samaveda is absolutely all about melody. While the Rig Veda was recited in 3 basic tones, the Samaveda uses 7 notes. And yes, these perfectly match the modern solfege of sa, re, ga, and so on. In fact, this single Veda birthed all of Indian classical music. The priest in charge here is the Udgatra, the singer. Now, his job isn't really to convey the meaning of the words, because everyone already knows the words from the Rig Veda. Instead, the Udgatra acts as a living, breathing musical score. By using these long vocal prolongations and musical interjections, he creates this deeply ecstatic sonic atmosphere. He's literally transforming a mechanical ritual into a profoundly aesthetic experience.
All right, zooming in on our final and frankly highly practical fourth pillar, the Atharva Veda, the realm of magic and medicine.
And this brilliantly illustrates the vast, incredibly wide scope of these texts. We literally just talked about the highest cosmic philosophy and sublime music, right? But then, consider this hyper-practical, step-by-step guide from the Atharva Veda for treating a fever. First, you invoke the fire god Agni to lead the heat away. Second, you apply an herbal remedy using a very specific plant. And third, you perform a magical transfer to send the disease into a frog, or maybe a yellow object. It's amazing. It playfully juxtaposes that soaring cosmic philosophy with everyday spells, black magic, prosperity charms, and early forms of what would eventually become Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine.
Bring this all back to our theatrical metaphor. The priest associated with the Atharva Veda is called the Brahmin. But here's the catch. He doesn't sing and he doesn't pour offerings. He just sits there in total silence. He observes the entire ritual like a hawkish theatrical producer. If a prop, like a vessel, is dropped or a line is mispronounced by any of the other priests, the Brahmin steps in, often mentally, reciting Atharva Veda magic to neutralize the bad karma of that mistake. He is essentially the ultimate magical repairman of the Vedic world.
Okay, let's look at Section 6, one unified ancient system. We're going to zoom out now and snap all 4 of these incredible pieces together.
So, the crucial point is this. To truly understand the Vedas, you have to realize that a full sacrifice required all 4 of these priests working simultaneously. Just look at how it breaks down. You have the Hocher providing the vision and the script from the Rig Veda. You have the Advaryu providing the action and procedure from the Yaju Veda. Then there's the Udgatra adding the melody and emotion from the Samaveda. And finally, the Brahmin, supplying the practicality and magical protection from the Atharvaveda. Literally no single Veda is complete on its own. Together they are this perfectly interconnected machine.
But honestly, here's what makes this entire system utterly staggering: the timeline. These texts were originally composed around 1500 BCE. But get this, they weren't actually written down until the Gupta era, around 500 CE. That is a 2,000-year gap. For 2 full millennia, this massive, hyper-complex encyclopedia was transmitted purely through an incredibly sophisticated, virtually error-proof oral memory system. They developed these crazy specialized chanting patterns, repeating words in complex pairs and sequences, all just to ensure that not a single syllable was lost or corrupted over thousands of years. To put that into perspective, it is an absolutely breathtaking achievement of human memory.
So as you'll see, the Vedas are absolutely not just religious texts. They are a complete, beautifully complex encyclopedia of the human spirit. They teach us that reality is simultaneously poetic, procedural, aesthetic, and magical. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to ponder today. If ancient thinkers used all these different lenses to map out their existence, how many modes of knowing are you using to understand your universe today? Something to think about for sure. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.